Hi guys. So if you've been working in IT for a long time like me, then you know there's certain things in an office setting that your end users will complain about. First thing they'll notice, can't get email. Get called about that. Can't turn on my computer's malfunctioning, always get called about that. And thirdly is printing. I can't print. These are some of the most visible issues, especially if you're working in a help desk type environment, that people will call about. If they can't check their email, they can't print, they can't log in, top things to have issues with. So today I thought I'd do a quick tutorial on just finding out the status of your printers. So you probably work in an area, and no matter if it's a small office or a large office set, or even at a home environment, your printers, especially any network printers, does put out information that you can collect and find out the status of your printers. So if you work in a large office and you have maybe 30 printers, you're going to want to know what's going on with those printers. If it's up, if it's down, then you could have one of your junior sysadmin or your help desk go and monitor and make sure that the printer is okay if it's giving off any sort of warning message. So today I'll show you how to use Nagios XI to monitor printers in your environment. So you can find out the status of your printer. You can use SNMP, which is Simple Network Management Protocol, to pull information about the status of your printer. You could also check if it can ping, and you can do this on a wire or wireless printer configuration. So just keep watching. I'll show you how easy it is to get started to monitoring your printers and how you can use a network discovery tool to be able to add all your printers in a large environment at once by doing a SNMP scan. So just keep watching and I'll show you how easy it is to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and log into our Nagios XI server that is up and running. If you haven't set up your Nagios XI server yet, I'll have a link here pointing to one of my other videos that will show you how quickly you could go ahead and set up a Nagios XI server on I did mine on CentOS 7, but it could run on Fedora or Red Hat just as easily with the exact same instructions. So I'll put a link here to that video. So once we log into Nagios XI, it's going to take us to the main page. It has a lot of quick links on here that will take you to the most commonly used features in Nagios XI. So it gives you a quick summary. This is without changing any of the display here. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the features here. So one of them shows you the summary of services. So right now I have two hosts running, the local host, which is the server and monitors itself, and I have one Linux client, and it's monitoring 22 to 24 services between it. So it's monitoring, and it shows right now 2 have warnings. So we're going to go ahead and add a third service in here. That's going to be monitoring a printer. So it's going to be able to print, ping the printer, and it's also going to be able to monitor the status. So if we click on the services we're currently running, you kind of see what's going on. So we have, these are hosts, so they were running Linux hosts. So this is going to be different from running a monitor on a printer, obviously. So it's not going to obviously monitor all these services. It's going to be mainly doing a ping, and the second one, it's going to do a SNMP scan on the port. SNMP is a really old protocol. It stands for Simple Network Management Protocol, and it allows you to run it. You could try doing this on a scan on your network. It allows you to run it against all the IP addresses on your network, and it's a way of collecting information about the systems running. So you could do like a network type discovery on your network and find what kind of hardware might be running and whatever status information your hardware is configured to release. So for printers, it can be configured, and in my printer by default, and I think commonly for many printers, but it will allow you to get the printer status information. So my printer is idle, it's asleep most of the time. So when you do an SNMP scan on it, it's going to return back deep sleep. So you'll see that after we configure it, configure the printer. So just know that the way this monitor works is using the SNMP protocol. And if you haven't used SNMP, it's actually really interesting. It's been around forever. It's really interesting that you can collect this kind of information on your network about the hardware and servers running on in your infrastructure. So you might want to take a look at that. And it is still commonly used for certain network management tools. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the wizard there on the right hand side, and you can see Nagios has lots of pre-configured wizards that you can use. And these wizards are great because they require very minimal like file configuration, services installation, so it's really just kind of click, you type in some information, you just kind of click and you just kind of enter in the information about the service you want to monitor. So I'm going to go ahead and click on printers, and this is going to allow you to monitor any printer with an HP JetDirect. So this is most office printers, any network printers, including wireless printers. It will allow you to monitor. So if you have a home printer that is on a USB, for example, this is not what it's meant for. This is really meant for office printers, shared printers in a large office or small office setting. So if we click on that, it's going to want the printer IP address. If you don't know the printer IP address, you go to the printer and print out a status page. Usually through the menu, you could find system configuration and print out the status page. And it will display the current IP address. If you have any sort of DHCP reservation for the MAC address, you can also find it off your DHCP server. Or you could do, like, if you know the host name for the printer, which most times you won't, you could actually do a DNS query to find the IP address. Now let's go ahead and click next, and it's going to take us to what services you want to monitor. This is where I mentioned that you could do a ping, which is pretty standard, standard ICMP protocol, allowing you to do a ping on the IP address and get a response back. The second one is the SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, and it will pull whatever information the hardware allows it to release. So if it's a server, you get actually different information about the current hardware settings, depending on what the hardware is allowed to release. By default, the printer will release the status. So if it's asleep, if it has a printer jam, if it's offline, it will let you know here with the SNMP port scan. Now, the string right here, public, is referred to as the community string, which is like a pseudo password type thing where it's sent with the SNMP packet to the hardware to collect information, but it won't release information unless that community string is correct. So if you want to make sure that someone can't just plug into your network and start doing SNMP scans on your network to start trying to attempt to penetrate or hack your environment, you might want to use a community string, and you could set that in the hardware. But by default, public is the string. So that's not something you need to add or change. If you haven't done anything to your printer, then it will be the string public. All right, so next we're going to see how often it checks. The monitors every 5 minutes, and then if there's an issue, every 1 minute. I'm not going to send notifications for the printer, and as important printers are, I don't need to be paid if a printer is down. I would like to know, but do I need to know immediately? Generally, I don't feel that I do. You could add it to a group. So if you have a group of services, such as printers, obviously, you could put it in a printers group, and maybe there is an intern in your company that you can allow them the task of monitoring the printers and seeing if any printers are having issues to go out and check it, maybe a junior sysadmin. So once you're done with the wizard, it really nicely puts it in. So that's really the difference between Nagios Core and Nagios XI, is how easy this wizard is, and it's so much easier doing it with Nagios XI. That's why I will always recommend Nagios XI over Nagios Core, is because it's the simplicity of doing things like this that it just takes literally just a few seconds, and you got your services being monitored. So we've got our host here. It's showing our ping successful. It's showing us our printer status. And right now it's set printer status is deep sleep. And actually, if I walk over to the printer and take a look at it on the little display panel, it does say deep sleep. So that is where it's actually coming from. If you click on it, you can actually see some performance graphs here. Now these graphs are mainly accessibility, like the ping. So round trip time average, packet loss average, max round trip time. So it's really how easily or how quickly you can effectively access the service or the port over the network. That's really what that performance chart is. So what if something happens to the printer? So let's take a look. I went over to my printer and I messed with it. So I clicked on pause on the top there. So this printer has a pause button. Most printers do. It's a pretty common feature. And what happens is a few minutes later, sure enough, my Nagios XI server went to warning because now my printer is paused. All print jobs have been halted. No one can print. And now you can start getting phone calls that they cannot print. So end users might help themselves. You could try letting them know that they could go walk over to the printer and do a certain task, or go up or send a junior sysadmin up to take a look at what's going on with the printer. So it's nice to look here quickly and say, oh, your printer's just paused, or your printer's just jammed, or you're out of paper, depending again on what your SNMP configuration will allow you to collect. And then it's going to go ahead and just display it here, and then you can let your end users know, or you know what to expect once you arrive to look at the printer. So just really quick, let's say you work in an environment with many, many printers. You work for a mid-sized company or large-sized company. You could use the auto discovery feature. So you could give it a network range and it to scan. You could do the scan just a single time. That's what I usually recommend. I wouldn't recommend letting do this over and over again, because usually I'm just monitoring servers or specific services. I don't necessarily want to monitor desktops. So I'm going to monitor a specific range, and it's going to go out and try to discover what servers are out there. So it's going to go ahead and start scanning our network. So once it's doing this, if you have a large number of printers, you can go through the list of discovered scan hosts or systems or printers or servers or workstations. It's going to come up with a long list. Depending on how large your environment is, you come up with a few or a few hundred. So from the list, you can select which specific IP address you want to monitor. So this might be useful if you have a large number of printers and you don't necessarily want to go one by one to go ahead and add each printer. You can go ahead and do an auto discovery scan. So if you see here, it says mine found 17 new devices to be monitored. Of course, I don't have to select all 17 to be monitored, so let's go ahead and click on it. And it's going to give me a list of just general information it was able to find about those hosts. So let's go ahead and take a look. So click next. So here's the list, and it's going to try to give you a little bit of information about what it could possibly collect. If it was able to find some open ports, it's going to allow you to select those services to be monitored. So if you know, if you have DNS, you can get the host name here. If you know what IP address range your printers are in, sometimes they're over the 200s. A lot of companies might, or they might have it in a certain range of IP addresses. You can go ahead and just select those only. So you don't necessarily have to select, obviously, every single host it found with the auto discovery. So here we're just checking off the ones we want. So I select a few here, click next, and this is very similar. It's just going to check how often you want it monitored, every few minutes. Who do you want to be notified? So who do you want being paged? If you want to add it to part of a group. So if, let's say you selected all your Linux servers or all your printers, you put in a Linux server group or a printer group and go ahead and hit apply. So that is a bulk add to Nagios. We just added a handful of servers to start monitoring. And once we go back to the main page, you're going to see the additional services. Last thing I want to show you here is the Nagios system component status. So if you ever have any problems adding a system to Nagios XI, you want to make sure you come over here and all your services, of course, are green and good to go. So this is a really easy place for troubleshooting. If you ever have any issues, you come over here and take a quick look. You see what subsystem component is having an issue, and you might just need to restart a service, something pretty easy to do. So it was just a quick troubleshooting tip. This doesn't happen often, but it's just thought it's good to know. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful. Be sure to note the status of your printer. It's so important for your end users. And I will see you guys next time. Subscribe to get updates. Bye.